Recording. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Julian Ryan of the National Story Network. Welcome to our May 219th Story Lab. This session is brought to you by Stories in Organization, one of the many groups in the Storytelling in Organization and National Storytelling Network. Today, we are joined by Artem Mushin-Makedonskiy, who is going to present the tales of organizational storytelling as told in 3 case studies. Artem is a business trainer, a storyteller with a background in leadership engagement and graphic facilitation. He leads training workshops at his organization, conducts storytelling sessions, but most of all, and most important point that we can share with you today is he's the very first Russian-based member of National Story Network. So welcome, Artem. Help me bring that introduction to life by sharing a little bit about your background, your influences, and why you do the work that you do.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. It's like a dream come true, actually. As a slight background, my storytelling career, I would say, started when I was 13 years old. At that age, I acted in a small theater play in our school, which is called Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. You're familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite popular. Yeah. And I was studying in the class with the physics profile, and we had 18 members in the class and 18 students and 4 girls among them. So I dreamt about being Alibaba because, like Alibaba, obviously. But I was meant to be a different character who is most commonly forgotten. I was Mustafa, the one who sat on the market, and I was pissed. I was pissed about it because I was angry and envious. And my school teacher, was a wise woman, and she said, "Artem, you just don't get it yet. Mustafa is way more important." And I thought to myself, how is this man sitting on the sidewalk fixing the goods more important than the Alibaba with all his money and all his property? And then I understood. After all the years, I came back to this memory to revisit it, and I understood actually that Alibaba is just a character for most of the story, because most of this fairy tale is told by Mustafa to the chief of the thieves, of the bandits on the market, and it's like 2/3 of the tale. And as I understood it, I understood the role of the storyteller, and it was a fascinating insight for me. So that was obviously not a memory when I got to business, but one of the times I got into business with storytelling, and I understood its value, was when I was working in Aon Hewitt, and it's a global engagement consulting company, and we were trying to sell a huge package to a multilingual international consulting company, and they just didn't buy it. Like, they had the money, they had the need, but they just didn't quite trust us. We did everything we could. We invited them as co-hosts. We invited them for conferences. We even did some pre-trials, but nothing worked. And eventually we came to an idea of inviting Edward Stanoch, who was chief of Western and Eastern and Central Europe. I'll just give you an idea about this man. He is tall, gray hair, skin, and he's an ex-Iron Man. So you can imagine this guy. So 50 years Iron Man, and Edward. And so he comes to this client and says, like, okay, my Russian is not very good, but давайте поговорим об этом. And then he just goes on discussing, and I'm like, okay, Edward, I'm looking at you. I'm gonna write down every tool you use, every question, every line, and I'm just like waiting for a technique to start, and it just doesn't. At the end of the meeting, I have nothing on my list, but they eventually buy this product. A week later, we have a contract signed. And I go to Edward and say, like, what did you do? How did you manage to do that? And he just goes, well, I just told him how we got to this product and how we got the idea. And that was the moment for me when Mustafa kicked me in the back of my head again, like, do this for the rest of your life. And here I am. Here I am back.
Now, I happen to know, Artem, you have created a presentation that you want to share with us.
True.
So I'm going to hand over the invisible microphone about 4,650 miles towards you in Moscow. A little bit of a stretch, given how short I am, but I'm going to let you take it away and just have some fun, and we're looking forward to hearing it and then catching up afterwards. So lots of comments and questions. We're very excited.
Great. Thank you so much. Guys, I know it's a lecture, but I'll try to keep it brief as possible and to show you the most of Russian context as I can. So basically, when you Google Russia and business storytelling, you come to the quote of Eugene Mirman, who is a stand-up artist. And that's basically the issue with Russian storytelling, because when you Google storytelling in Amazon, you have like 70 books on business storytelling, marketing, brand and stuff. But when you Google it in Russia, you get the quote of a stand-up comedy artist who is in America, but is originally from Russia. So that's the issue. We have a great literature tradition, but we are still in a phase of developing, and we have a lot of potential. So I just told you where does my story begin, and now I'm going to switch to the first topic of creating a great induction day. So the main issue here is first day at work really is not fun at all. When I came to Société Générale Group, I was on the first day and I was listening to this presentation. I was nearly falling asleep, as like the 20 people, the rest of them. Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry, guys. So I was really falling asleep, but then one man, the director of a huge department, he just came to the stage and said that he was 6 years in the bank and he was a new employee, was like no power, and now he's a director of a top department. And I asked him, how can you do that? How did you manage? And he said, well, and started telling a story. He told a story about how once he was brave enough to stand up and to say, no, we are going to do this project and this process differently. We're not going to do this the same way because just it's what we are used to do. And here is the message, guys. If you want to be successful in this bank, do this. Be brave enough to stand up to old processes in the matter of effectiveness. And that was the moment when everyone was awake and they were just writing down very quickly the thoughts of the wise men. So that's the idea I got from my first induction day, first official induction day. And from that moment, I was dreaming to create a true induction day using storytelling. And you know, this guy, he really helped a lot. This is Sean Callahan, if someone is not familiar. He's a great storyteller from Australia, and he has a great book, Putting Stories to Work. When I read it from core to core, I picked up a process where you can transition your values into the story and just transmit them. So basically, we've created a whole new process of translating and transmitting values. And here are 4 key ingredients. Well, first of all, a brand map. Here you can see a map of our core values, and the center is the client square, like client is the main value, and we have all the 4 other values, and mainly they are on the big papers on the walls, and that's it. And we try to make it so that people that are coming to the company are feeling that they are not only on the walls, they're in the people. And here are the 4 things we've created as a team to make it succeed in Russia. So first of all, we made them share stories about their backgrounds and apply them immediately. One of the tasks was that they had to create a project using knowledge from the 3 folks they gathered in the team, like IT guy, HR guy, and marketing guy. So you just create a random project, and they had to share stories. Secondly, and this is a major part here, we had to them to play a story and then listen to a story. So for the task of simplicity, they had to believe that there is simplicity in our company as a core value. And to make it happen, we gave them a small and easy process, like ordering some paper from Komos. It's a shop in Russia, and it's quite routine, but we asked them to make it simpler. And after they made the presentation, we invited folks from the project office, and they told their stories about how they made a real business process made of 60 stages into 34 stages and just showed them. So basically, they laid the value and they listened how this value corresponds. And this was an amazing, it was a major part. Third part, and this is valuable for Russians because they had not only to listen to others, but to reflect themselves. We have like this mentality that we don't always like to listen to other wise people. We tend to think of ourselves as wise guys also. So here, to understand that you have an area of responsibility, we asked them to play a small role game, where they just created airplanes. And the trick was, one team created a design of airplanes, and the other one also created a design, and then they switched. And this team built theirs airplane, and this team built theirs airplane. And after that, we've asked, who is responsible for a good airplane? And some guys say like 30, 70 designers and engineers, and some others say 80. And one woman, and she's just the wisest of them all. She said it's mutual 100% responsibility because it's one plane. And it was a breakthrough, and we share this knowledge. She was actually one of team leaders in our bank, so it's valuable for them. And they had to reflect over it so that they tune into this. So finally, not to make it too long, finally they had to create a story together and commit to it. So we have a tradition in Russia as students. We often go on the first course, like when we are freshmen. I guess it's told this way. We go out and have a party, but that's not always a party. It's like you sign vows, you swear to be loyal to your faculty and to your alma mater, and this is what we did to them. And they signed really funny vows, like, I swear not to take someone's food from the fridge, or, and they signed like really vows that really matter. Like, I swear to protect the dignity of everyone who's working in this company, and to, like, be responsible. So basically, when they signed up for it, they created their new story. And as a process, those 4 core ingredients made it into a culmination where they really felt into this company. And like before, it was always really boring, and now it's a really fun process. And even team leaders send their troops into this process and like go again, go again. They will not notice. Go again. And so it was really an insight for us. That's basically it about the first part, about the first tale.
I want to just say, as someone who worked in HR for years, I wrote pieces on stealing food. So the fact you found a creative way to get the message out to them early and buy into it is a wonderful thing. You probably made numerous people's lives better.
That's true.
Good innovation on that part. It's the simple things that make the job good.
Of course, it always is. Okay, now to the second part. There is a process, a simple process of discovering a mission, and it's valuable for Russians because we have a lot of companies with mission statements, and most of them go like, we are going to make best financial services, or we're going to make best telecommunication services. So it's like about the product. And it's not really powerful because you know what I'm talking about. The mission is something not committed to the product. It's something committed to the people, to the value you're placing in the world. So basically, to the guys who are not familiar, there's a simple model, a golden circle, and I wanted to tell you why it is so special in Russia. So just a short part of lecture from Simon Sinek. You can see him here on the right. Every person has some what to do. Like I host trainings, you host trainings. Like we are storytellers. Several people they are conscious about their how. It's like a special process, a special something. Like for example, we have a trainer in Russia who's called Gleb Arkhangelsky. Gleb. He is a master of time management. He's like the guru in here, and he's really regarded for this. And you could say that we both host trainings, but he hosts the time management trainings, and he's known for that. So it's like his specialty. But fewer people are familiar with their why, and it's not about the money, as Simon Sinek says. I will just give you a short example. You all know a company like Toshiba or Dell, and they build computers. And what Simon exemplifies in his TED talk, he says like their marketing message sounds like this: we build computers, and to make them great, we use the best hardware. We have great soft. We have the latest devices plugged into this. Do you want a computer? And you say like, well, maybe no, maybe yes, but why not Dell? Why not HP? But Steve Jobs, and this is what is so valuable about him. See, he said, everything we do is committing to thinking different. To think different, we use a different soft and our own hardware. And it so happens that we use to build computers. Do you want one? And here you feel more power because it's more of a message. And that's just the basic part. But here's what's so special about Russia. Why is actually two things around here, and it's the beauty of our language, because why is translated from English into Russian in two words: почему и зачем. So почему, why, is from the past, like why, where are you coming from? And why, зачем, like за, it's like за, after what you're going. So basically the why concept here is a lot more efficient because it's split into two parts. So you can be discussing why, and you can be discussing the mission, which is in the future, and you can be discussing your stories separately, and that's the beauty. And so how do I make this process? And here are two factors that I have found to work with Russian leaders. First of all, the Russian leaders that I've worked with are not really keen on opening themselves to working with mission like from the start. Why? Because they are focused on financial results. They're focused on operational results, like results. So first thing I do in the workshop, I make them care. There is a small activity I use, which is called Far Away. I picked it up when I was working in Axis, and it's still working. The core of this activity is that there is a group of leaders on the left and the group of employees on the right, like in this strange letter that I drew on the floor with the tape. And the leaders have to replace the employees in spots. But the key is that this whole activity is very tricky. The leaders always stop communicating. Then they don't ever share the task they received from the top manager to the employees. They keep it a secret because they have their result. And the employees get so disengaged. They just sit down, start chatting and eating. This group was so bold that one of the guys just wrote like, "You dumbasses," on the board, like with the marker when they were waiting. And it was like, what? And I was like a spectator. I have nothing to do here. So I made them care, and then I made them understand that what happened there is that it focused too much on results, but too little on the mission, on the global part, on engagement. And when they are ready to talk about engagement, we slowly present them with the whole model of the why concept. And when they are familiar with that concept, only then we dive into stories. So, and we don't even call them stories here, because Historia or stories here in Russia is something major, and it's really a big thing. And I would really like to focus on a word like episode, which is episode in Russian. It's quite similar, and it's really catchy for the people. And after they build up this momentum, this energy, they blast off into this exercise. And only then they can really evaluate what it is to be a leader, what it is to be a part of this department, what it is to be an employee who is really believing and really an ambassador of the brand. So basically what I found about Russians is they have to have a build-up to make it live for them. So that's all for the second part, I guess. I would really love to go to the second part if you don't have like
No, we
comments.
have time, and I'm sure we all have questions at the end too. So
Great. Okay.
Okay. We're at 12:24 my time, so we have about 5 minutes to do.
Great. It's all I need actually. Final thing, I would like to share with you some insights that I had to how to host a training with stories. It's not story training, like training someone in storytelling, but it's about hosting a training and using stories. So one thing I really picked up from English literature was Hadia Nuruddin's book Story Training. And she advises a lot of stuff, and she says people are really open to sharing stories. But that's actually not the case in Russia, because when I say, like, could you share a story when you were like blah, 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 or could you share a story of blah, 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 and they go like, well, a true leader is responsible, and they give me a fact every time, like every time, and it's so mind-blowing. But they're awesome too. And I discovered to work.
So over here.
Yeah, it's great to have the same issues. So first thing I learned is you have to start before you start, and it's a tool that I use really often. So I just play music in the background, and as the people are gathering, I just ask them like, what do you think of like emotional intelligence? And they go like, well, blah blah blah. And I go like, and how does emotional intelligence match? And we have this chit chat. And then I open up the training, but they are not aware of it. I open up the training with a story that goes like this, a short version. As I was about to pilot my first ever emotional intelligence training, I was being late for my office. And as I arrived to the railway station, I noticed that there is no train. And people on the platform are just like all over the place. They are nervous and fuzzing and being crazy about it. And I'm like also being crazy. I'm mad. I'm all red already. And like, it's winter, it's so cold. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill. And like, wait, I'm going to host an emotional intelligence training. Okay, okay. So, and I'm just like, okay, what do I know about emotional intelligence? I'm just gonna turn on the anthropologist position. It's like being curious about other people. And then I just start looking around, and I see this grandfather, like an old man, and he's just like, and he's just like standing there smiling. And I walked up to him, and he sat down in this railway, in this train, and I sit next to him, and he just like picks up a book from his suitcase and just like opens it, and it cracks, and it's like, and he just read for 30 minutes straight, and he just didn't notice the late train or the angry people. He just had this view on this book. And that was when I learned that nothing that is happening around you influences you as much as the thoughts in your head. Mm-hmm. And sure. As I opened up this training, I asked, and that's the second tool I use, I asked people to tell me a situation when they found that emotional intelligence is something they crave, is something they want to learn. So I don't ask them about their goals or expectations, just I'm dropping it. I ask them about situations. And when they tell me, after this story, it's really easy. When they tell me a situation, I grab them like a hook and take the expectations from it. Because it's really, the stories are like what we're telling, it's us. Uh-huh. So that's like the double activity. And the third one is what I use for sales and leadership training mostly. I ask for experience in stories. What do I mean here? Regularly, leaders start discussions in the group like, you should do that, or you should do that. And as a rule, in the beginning of the training, I say, guys, you're all experts. I'm not here to educate any of you. I'm just here to help you share knowledge. So one rule I use is, before you start saying you should do that, think of a situation where you've learned it and first share this situation, and then pause. And then pause to give the second person time to evaluate this experience and to get his sense, his meaning from it. And this really works amazing in Russia because they have so many anecdotes and so many stories, and they just couldn't stop. I'm just like, okay, go on, okay. And they educate themselves. So my job really became easier. That's what I'm trying to say. And final thing, like a minute, I have a minute and a final thing. I have two simple rules.
Use that.
I have two simple rules that I use, and they are really effective with Russians, because Russian language is really the farthest you can get from Chinese and Japanese, because it's gibberish for us, but we are really craving those hieroglyphs. I regularly see people with tattoos of hieroglyphs they can even not understand, I guess. But there are two hieroglyphs I present. First one is Chinese, and it means true listening. And I will just shortly explain it for you. The left part, it looks like a letter. The left part means ear. And from the top to bottom, the right part means 10 eyes, 1 heart. So basically, it sounds like gibberish, but the sense of it is, you have to listen to somebody like you have 10 eyes and they're looking into 1 heart of 1 person to find out his truth and his sense. And just to give you an idea, the modern Chinese hieroglyph for listening is a hammer and the mouth. So just shut up. And just the difference of the old Chinese and the new. And so the second one on the right is Japanese, and it's translated Shoshin. And there are two reasons why I love it. Because first one is that my first surname is Mushin, and I like to associate with all of this Chinese stuff, but I'm not a part of it. Well, unluckily. But secondly, Shoshin means show, student, and Shin, mind. So any story you hear today, I tell to my participants, any story you hear, you are going to get something new out of it. A style or new knowledge or any circumstances, you're going to get something new. So look for it. For all this day, look for new, be a student. And they just relax so much when they get it, because they learn something new in the beginning of the training. So they established it like I say you learn process, and then they just relax and they just sit down and are really open to discussion. So that's the two rules I use for story training. And I guess that's all the insights I brought to you today about the Russian storytelling. And I will be ready to open to any questions to share some more. So thank you so much for listening.
While I'm unmuting you, we have where you can find our presenter for today. So that's terrific. One thing really the whole presentation resonated with me. One of the things I liked hearing is your explanation of the word why. And Pete, you're still muted. Why is that? Or did you want to be muted?
No, I can unmute here with the space bar.
Okay, great. So what I liked about that word is because no matter if I was teaching stories or if I was interviewing in the past, I always liked the backstory. And I think the way you described it, is showing how we use our backstories or what informed the way we think and what we do and what we're bringing forward into the future and present day. And I think that's a very elegant way of using that word. So you're going to have to teach me how to pronounce that on another day. That's how we can use it to play it forward. So
I'm gonna type it into the chat right now.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm sure there's other questions. I mean, I always have loads of questions and comments, but I want to hear from everybody else about their thoughts and their feedback. Or let's get the conversation going. We have about 15 to 20 minutes because we have some wrap-up items at the end. but do weigh in.
Artem, this is Tom talking here.
Yeah.
And could you say a little bit more about the golden circle and how it's used? And then also, I know you mentioned the why was especially interesting in Russia because there's more than one way to say the word why, I guess. And
Yeah.
I didn't quite follow that. So if you could maybe hit that again, I'd appreciate it.
Of course. Well, it's originally a model by Simon Sinek, and the way he uses it is that he says all the people that start communication from the why to the how and to the what, they inspire others because they share what's inside of them. And then a great example from American culture is, and I love it absolutely, is Martin Luther King Jr. Was he only one who was oppressed in this period? Clearly no. Was he only great speaker? Clearly no. But he didn't come up with a plan of 12 points. So how? He came up with a dream. He shared his why. So that's basically an example. And about Russians, one why is living in the past. So it's like kicking us forward from the past. Like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? It's like, why did you do that yesterday? And the second why is living in the future. Why do you want to do that? So, and we have two words for them. Zачем is the future, зачем, and I wrote them to the chat for you. And почему is the past, the why from the past. And first we start talking about the зачем, future, because we want to establish a mission, and a strong mission is the why concept, obviously. And as we are talking about it, we find out that why from the future is actually built up from the moments that are in the past. So all our aspirations, all our wishes, all our dreams are made up of something in our background. And it's really simple to understand as soon as you match English and Russian models. Did I get you an answer?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give you a pause there to take a sip. What
Yeah.
I appreciated you talking about is that you recognize your culture in the sense you said financial services, like big into results. Sometimes that is the most frightening thing for folks, or in Timmy saying, I'm not going to talk about any of the softer things or the things that help us communicate. I want to get down to business. And that sometimes is a challenge in a lot of businesses to get straight to the facts that you say, and they've lost the people they haven't really gotten. So I think that was good. But the thing I was curious about was you said you got people to care. So you've trapped them in a room, you know, they're mixing it up, you're doing training, they're there. But how did you get them from being there?
Okay, let me dive a bit deeper. The thing I do to make them care is like you can do it two ways. You can make them open by showing them something new. But if they evaluate themselves as experts, you have to show them that they are not actually top experts. Like they have options of learning. And this whole exercise I do in the beginning is built up so that the group of leaders that manage the employees, they are made to fail. So like I will give you a glimpse. Imagine that you are given an instruction on a sheet of paper, like this, and it's like really detailed. And you have no idea what to do because you don't see the employees that are in the different room. You can just go there and look for them for the first time. And then you get a sense of what's written. How can you place them in the room? How you misplace them? And you have lots of rules and regulations and strict like notices. But one thing that they miss is that this sheet of paper says you cannot show this list to the employees. And they just totally miss the point, and they say like, okay, I cannot show it to employees. I will not tell them anything that I've learned from this list, and they make it total secret. So basically, that's a thing that we do. If we are told not to show the list, we're not showing the list. But no one told us not to speak to people and not to motivate people, and they just focus on results so much and get so obsessed that they fail. Even if they win, we are discussing it afterwards, and we come to the point that, okay, you were focused on the task, you've beaten the task, but how did your employees feel? And then the group of employees just starts throwing it back at the leaders like, we felt terrible, guys, you suck as leaders. And like, I regulate this whole process, and then they see they all have potential of growth. So that's like a major secret of my exercise. Like, keep it down.
Only among us. But I love it because a lot of time, having recruited, and I'm sure all of you have experienced this, you've had maybe what we call interns or juniorly joining, and they have sometimes the tedious tasks or not the most exciting tasks, but if you can connect them to the why and put them in your room with you when they're thinking, oh my gosh, I went to college, I've done all this work and this is all I'm doing. If they can get a little more excited and see
True.
the path to, some other things. So anyone else, I know sometimes it's hard to jump in, but anybody else? Olga, is that you?
Yeah, sure. I have
Great.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on my phone and it's a bit hard to press the button. Yeah, so I live in St. Petersburg. I'm currently in Serbia, so it's a bit loud here. Thank you, Artem, for the presentation, because I represent.
Yeah, so we can hear, because otherwise we'll get echo. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so I represent a storytelling and listening company that's based in New York and London, in St. Petersburg. And I did my thesis, I studied psychology, clinical psychology, and I wrote my thesis on using their method, the narrative storytelling method, with women's stories in St. Petersburg. And then we recently met with Artem, and he invited me into this webinar, and I really liked the presentation, Artem, and I can say a few things because being in the Russian context, you really were able to kind of give the key moments of what I think the specifics of Russian maybe mentality is in some moments. So it was really nice, especially the fact that Russians really like to grab onto facts, and that, yeah, really they strive for the results more or less than the process usually. And I liked your story about when you were late to the training on the metro or the train platform, and with this old guy reading. But then I didn't really catch. I think later you said that you kind of pull out stories from other people.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as how do you start doing that, because you tell the story and then how does it happen? You pull out stories. You said maybe you can elaborate a bit.
Yeah, of course. It's a great question. I was really skeptical about this, but I read the book by David Hutchins. You're probably familiar with the nine. Oh my God, I know the Russian name, but the Circle of Nine Muses.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. Yay!
Okay, it's backwards.
Yeah, it's
Circle of the Nine Muses.
Let me just say it in Russian. It's 9 techniques storytellinga, and you're probably familiar. And he has some hooks to pull out the stories of different people. And there I read a quote from Terence Gargiulo, and he said, like, the closest distance between two people is a story. And to pull out someone's story, you have to share your story first. And I was like, that's nonsense. But recently I contacted Terence and we had a great interview. And just to give you a glimpse of it, when I get interviews, I ask all storytellers what makes a good story a great story. And they say like structure, emotions, or character, or knowing your audience. And Terence said, love. You have to transmit love to make your audience care and to make them feel loved as you're talking. And he just gave me this insight, and I tried to share my most vulnerable stories. And then as I asked them to share something like this, like what brings you here? Like what situation brings you here? Like that's like, I'll give you a Russian quote I give. после какой ситуации вы поняли, что вам этот тренинг необходим? So basically, like what situation brought you to the understanding that you need this training? And after hearing a couple of stories of mine, they are more welcome to share stories. And there's a trick. There's a small trick. I always choose a person who I think really wants to share a story. And there is one guy or one girl who is really anxious about telling her story. So if she goes first, everyone tells a story. If I pick like a big IT guy who just goes like, I'm here to entertain myself, they just go like, okay, fails. I had this instance. It's real life experience. So yeah, that's that's what it is like. So is it a good answer for you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, because I realize you do use a lot of psychology in your training, which is really nice, and I can see that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're making me unload so many memories I've tried to suppress about in IT, where I'd go into rooms and I'd be like, tell me when there's a noun or a verb, or we're going to have like closed captions, because everything's abbreviations. But to your point about the big guy, those people, when they finally win them over, they will be your biggest converts, because they'll get it and they'll shock everybody. Like, he will have street cred and his message will be stronger. But the vulnerability and the fact that you are breaking down that wall, and I like that quote. It's true. I remember, because when I do speeches or talks, I have two choices. We can either go there appreciating or loving. You know, I'm not being too fluffy about it, but I mean, you have two choices of emotion. I'm going to go there tending to think that they're the enemy and I'm going to dislike them and they're going to disrupt me, or I'm going to feel I'm going to engage and something good comes out of that. But the ability to say, look, I'm had this happen, they're going to, oh, I'm not the only one. You're going to talk to the bubble over their head. So that's cool. But I'm sure there's lots of stories you could have been sharing. And I like the fact you're always on a learning journey and reaching out. And I've caught a few of your YouTube preparation to meeting with you today and chatting with you. We've done a lot of conversations since we prepped, but the fact that you're constantly reaching out and collaborating or picking people's brains is a wonderful thing. One of the beauties of storytelling, I think. I'm going to just peer over and see where we are. We're at 12:45 Eastern Standard Time.
Is it okay?
Yeah, so we're doing pretty good. And that's
great.
If I can get the sound on, the video on, and keep an eye on the time, I consider an event a success. So what else? We have still a few people hanging out with us. That
I can say something. So can you hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Marina, and I got acquainted with Artem. So actually, on Facebook, because I saw one of his posts and I got interested in it, and I attended his training on storytelling. It was an open training. And I got in love with Artem as a storyteller. So I should be frank with you. And I started thinking about developing the storytelling culture within our organization, because I'm working in HR. I'm head of talent management for a big international organization based in Moscow. And we are actually doing a lot in developing the storytelling format, because it is important for our clients and it is important for developing the relationships with our clients. We use it for marketing, we use it for medical services, and so in other parts of the organization. I think that Artem was you were giving some examples of how to use storytelling when you do the values, communication of values, or communication of the mission within the organization, or engaging people in these types of activities. And we have now quite a difficult task, taking into consideration the Russian mentality, as Artem and Olga mentioned today. So to develop the topic of inclusion and diversity. So you can imagine that Russia is quite a conservative country, and when people start talking about diversity or gender balance, when they hear the words, they start thinking about, you know, some kinds of things which are, they just decide not to think about it at all, rather than start thinking. So their imagination brings them somewhere, I do not know where. So we invited Artem. I invited personally Artem to come, and he agreed to come to our organization and to talk to our people about storytelling, and do a short session with them on storytelling, but about inclusion and diversity. And we think that the storytelling can help people more, how to say, persuade. What is the word in English?
That was perfect. Persuade.
To acquire this topic through their personal stories, because it's not an easy topic, you know. And
Sure.
so because, yeah, not an easy topic. Like, for example, about the diversity and inclusion and diversity, I have a story that which I heard from the CEO of Google in Russia. So this is a lady, and at some of the conferences, she was saying that inclusion, diversity is when you are invited to a party. It is diversity, but inclusion is when you are invited to a dance at this party. So
Great.
this is also could be
This
a
is
story. I'm not a great storyteller. I just started learning how to use storytelling, but I like this how to say, metaphor very much, and I want to bring this sense and this metaphor to the organization.
I
But
will
you
use
do
it.
this only through metaphors, through storytelling. So
Yeah.
this is a good start, and this is where I rely on Artem to help our organization grow and help our organization develop with the storytelling tools.
That's
Is
wonderful,
this the right
Marina.
story, Artem, to tell?
Thank you. That's actually a great story of how you got acquainted with this woman, and the like the phrases themselves are a part of the story, and I hear how much it influenced you, and this is the story already.
It did. That's true. It did. Maybe I should start our session with this story, Artem.
Of
It properly,
course.
based on your training structure that you gave me at this training. I will think about it.
Great.
It's
Thank
a
you.
good start.
Thank you.
This is wonderful because you can give, Marina, I respect that, and that's an incredible undertaking and a very important and special one, because we can provide everything in statistics and graphs and all the information, but it's when we start talking to the heart and developing some empathy. The way we learn is when I sat in offices with staff and start to hear about their experiences, about how their background was creating some challenges when coworkers wouldn't accept them, how they were navigating certain things like just basically bathroom facilities in an organization. So it spoke to the heart. It became less of a statistics or a checkbox than, oh, now I know more. Now I can understand more. Now I can help in a different way, listening. And a lot of it's listening, the way you said, the listening with many ears and that part of it. So thank you. That's incredible. So I'm looking forward to hearing the updates and connecting.
You know, Julian, there's one more comment. Considering regarding the culture of Russians, it's interesting that the topic of diversity and inclusion is sometimes more difficult to discuss than in the States. And don't get me wrong here, because I know that like it's a really difficult matter, and like oppression and like gender issues is a big thing in USA. But the difficulty in Russia is that we're not used to even talking about it. Like there is this model like overtone window, like how can you make a topic appear in the public and be discussed. And so basically you are way further into this the rights movement, and it's amazing thing. I love it about your country because you are free to speak about it. And here we're like, okay, let's not speak about it at all. Like nothing.
Mhm.
And it's a grand issue here.
Mhm.
Even though we don't have like African American people, we have lots of different issues, and especially in the political area. But let's not go there.
Mhm. It's what we all have a lot, and thank you for reminding us about what we do well. We just have to do more of it and get better at it.
You're great at it.
So we are at, so I have to do one last bit of housekeeping. It's 12:53. So you have, Artem has presented his presentation deck with his places to find you, besides through National Story Network, which he's part of now, and it's wonderful. He has his Facebook page at Storyteller Notes, a great lie. He has YouTube interviews out there that are quite interesting, but the URL is way too long to read out to you.
Yeah.
And put his name in, and you'll be good. And one more important thing, if you've enjoyed today's Story Lab and want to find out more about the National Story Network, please visit our website or reach out to any of us. But the website is at storynet.org. There you can find more information about our groups and upcoming events. Like we have a storytelling conference that's happening in San Francisco, California, from July 25th to 28th, 2019. If you can't go, sign somebody else and send them. We have key speakers who are talking about personal stories from George Dawes Green and Charlotte Blake Aston, she's talking about a topic which I think is intriguing, middle of us. So kind of a teaser. But most of all, reach out to us about membership. Most important thing, right, Tom and right, Pete? Call us, email us about podcast guests or topics, and more importantly, just join us, be part of the storytelling culture. So until next time, I can't say good morning or good night because you're all over the place right now, but have fun, keep sharing stories and listening and building on what we learn. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. This has been incredible. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Wave, say goodbye. I don't know if I'm going to stop our recording, which is, I'm always sad when we do these at the end of it. It's like more. All right, I'm stopping the recording.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Great job.
Bye-bye.
Very nice. So long, everyone.
Thanks.